Okay, so we start at the bottom. We've got our power supply. It's and a battery backup. If it's not functioning, typically you're going to have lights that aren't on here, and or it'll be beeping, which means I'm not getting power or my batteries are dead. I haven't played with them a whole lot. I don't know a lot about them. If we have issues, I'd have to grab a manual and look it up and see what the problem is. Up above that, we have another node. Up above that, we have patch panels. And so all of the, this is actually the network switch, and these are the patch panels. So all of the DMX, all of the Ethernet jacks that you can plug in a lighting console or plug in a dimmer rack or plug in a node to come back into this patch panel and then into the network switch, and traffic comes in and out, and all the typical of a computer network is routed through there. So you have actually two switches in this rack, and then you've got patch stuff. The other piece that's up here is a rack mounted unison architectural control system. And this controls these screens. These are architectural control stations, and there's a screen like this obviously here. There's one on the stage, on stage right. There's one in the audio control booth right there above the exit stairs. There's one up in the lighting booth on the just to the left of the lighting console that's in a little rack, and it looks just like that, a screen. And then there's a couple of just push button stations that are up in the catwalks that just have a single button that you push on and off. That one that's at the top of the ladder that turns on the work lights in the catwalks, that's all runs back to this. Those are all architectural control stations. Occasionally this messes up and we have to reset it. It has that reset button that you can obviously see. Also, if you look in a manual that talks about programming, it has hidden buttons right here and right here, because these sometimes are sitting out in the open, and the idea is that the average person isn't going to know how to operate this, because all of the architectural lighting looks are programmed into this system, and you don't want the average person to reset that. But occasionally we have to go in and reset it, and we actually have 17 systems on campus that are controlled by one of these, and that we periodically have to deal with. And I'll get an email or something that says we're having a problem with the lighting in Clark 351, which is a classroom that has one of these in it, and I'll have to go take care of it. Or in the Taylor Chapel, or in, obviously we have one in the Kirkham, but we have one in every one of the performing venues in the Snow building as well, the Black Box, the Drama Theater, the Paris Concert Hall, the Ensemble Hall, the Rehearsal Hall. So there's a lot of these, and that's one of the things I'll worry about later, is helping you understand this and how to program it and how to look at it. There's a little piece of computer software that we have that we use to program it.
Okay.
For the most part, if you have a problem in here where the house lights are on or lights are on and you just can't figure it out, why are these lights on, what's going on, the lighting console's not on, there's nothing going on with the lighting console, come in here, open this up and reset it and see if the lights go off. If they go off, that was your problem.
Okay.
Okay, and that's happened to me several times actually, that somebody's called me and said, there's lights on in the heart, and I'll come over here and the lighting console's not on, there's nobody around. I check the actual architectural controls to see if something's not on, but if the architectural controls aren't responding, then I come in here and hit reset. Now, if for some reason you need to get to stuff that's in this rack, these little long screw heads actually are rods with threads, and this whole
panel?
Well, I guess it's not quite on the... Usually takes a screwdriver. Let's see if there's another tool drawer. There we go. So I mean, it's, standard screw, unthread it. Give it a little bit of a lift. and it peels away, and you actually have the back of all of these panels. So there's your DMX cables that are going into the back of that node. Here's power to everything on the back of your UPS. Obviously we have cable routing that's coming in here and going out. If I have to reset a node or reset a switch, I'll come back in here. And they typically don't have a reset on the front of them. It's typically you have to just disconnect the power, leave it off for a minute, and plug it back in.
Okay.
You have to give it a little bit of a lift. Maybe a lot of a lift. I have to do it with the door closed. There we go. Okay. So this is the network rack. This is the heart of our network. In the heart, we have a network rack of some kind in each one of our main venues. In our smaller venues, there's not typically a network rack. It's just an ER4 processor. You're already familiar with the dimmer racks, I believe. These are the standard racks that we use in here. This is the processor for these racks, the CEM Plus. Every dimmer rack has a processor. The processor is what controls what happens in the dimmer rack. Here's your breaker switches. These are lights that turn on. If you're getting signal, that'll be green. If you're getting power, it'll be red. It depends. We have different kinds of modules. This is actually an airflow module. That means there's nothing in circuit position 181 and 182. By keeping that in there, the air flows through the rack for cooling properly. If you leave that out, then the rack doesn't cool properly. If you'll notice, they're not sequential.
Yeah.
That's because this is phase balanced. It has 3-phase power, so you have 3 different hots that are coming in, A, B, and C, and they phase balance it so that if you get a really bad imbalance on one of the legs, it can trip the main breaker, and by phase balancing it, hopefully you have a pretty even usage of power across all 3 phases and you don't get an overload condition.
Okay.
There are racks that aren't phase balanced, so you just have to kind of look.
Do we have those here?
Yeah, we do. In fact, this one right here, this is a touring rack, and so it's not permanently hooked up to the building. It's actually attached to the cams. We're feeding it with cams. But this one, if you look at it, is just sequential.
Okay.
And all of our smaller ones, the little portable ones that are like up in the catwalks, those are all sequential.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it just doesn't make a lot of sense with touring stuff. They just don't do it. This is your actual power disconnect. This is for dimmer rack 1. This is for dimmer rack 2, and this is for the cam locks, which is right here.
Okay.
So if you had everything off, it's possible that that's tripped. But those are pretty hefty breakers.
Okay.
I've never seen one trip in the heart. I have seen it trip in the crooked. And I think you've used this before. Obviously, the cams come out of here. They go underneath this rack. They plug into this rack, and then it has pass-through, and so we power like our moving light distro off of this rack, and then also that's a motor power distro. This stuff right here is audio. All of that panel right there is audio. We don't touch it. This panel has some extra power in it that we're not using at the moment, but I think in the future we will actually have stuff that comes off of that panel.
Okay.
And that's the grand tour of your dimmer room.
Alrighty. Cool.